Hello students, how are you all? Hope you all are fine. Today we are going to learn a new lesson, lesson number 17, no formalities, please, part 2. Mrs. Desai met the principal soon after class. She told her about the excitement that followed the announcement of new books in the library. So, Mrs. Desai met the principal and told her how her class was excited on the announcement of new books in the library. They just cannot wait to read all those lovely books, she beamed. So, she told principal that her class students were so much excited that they cannot wait to read all those lovely books. The principal was also delighted and praised her. So, the principal praised Mrs. Desai, the class teacher of students of Standard 4, for encouraging the student. The credit goes to you, Mrs. Desai. You have created and aroused their interest in reading books. So she further told that Mrs. Desai has created and aroused their interest in reading books. It is going to help them a great deal in future. So she told that it will be beneficial for them in future. Yes, madam, said Mrs. Desai, but they find the weekly library period too short a time to read. So my students are going to appeal to you to allow home issue of books. They have written to you a letter of request. So Mrs. Desai told the principal that the weekly library period that was given to her student was too short that to read the books. So her students were going to write a letter to the principal, a letter of request to allow them to take the books at home. A letter? Why? Asked the principal in surprise. I had to teach the class how to write polite, informal letter, and I took this opportunity to make them actually write a formal letter, explained Mrs. Desai. So, Mrs. Desai explained to principal why she has made her students to write formal letter, as she wanted to teach them how to write polite formal letter. Excellent, Mrs. Desai, exclaimed the principal, and I shall not dampen their interest in reading. I shall certainly allow them to take books home for reading. So, the principal agreed to allow the students to take books home for reading. The next morning, the principal found the letter on her desk. She signed the letter with the remark, "Permission granted," and sent it to the librarian. To encourage the children of class 4 further, the principal instructed the librarian to give a written reply to the students, and here's what he wrote. So, here's the written reply given by the librarian to the students of class 4, in which he has described that how the principal has given permission for home issue facility of the books to the class. Hey, great news, cried the monitor. Look, we have received a letter from the librarian, and guess what? We can take storybooks home to read. Wow, exclaimed Shruti with bright round eyes. Goodbye, boredom. Welcome, happy hours, shouted Akshay. The letter from the librarian was put up on the class notice board for all to read. When Mrs. Desai walked into the classroom, the students of class 4th burst out into many exclamations of thanks. So the students thanked their teacher for her help to take their books at home for reading. Shall we write a letter of thanks to the librarian? Suggested Manuja. So Manuja suggested that they should write a letter of thanks to the librarian who was allowing them to take the books at home to read. That's an excellent idea, said Mrs. Desai, smiling to herself at this new interest in formal letter writing. So she was happy that her students were interested in formal letter writing and they were writing a letter of thanks to the librarian. This is the letter of thanks the children wrote to the librarian. So, in this letter of expression of thanks, the students of class 4th thank the librarian for allowing them to take the books at home and also encouraging them. They also promised to abide by the library rules and handle the books with great care. In this way, the students of class 4th learn how to write formal letter.